the Zoom. I thought I had everything muted, so. I know you thought it was space aliens. Good evening, everyone. At this time, silence your cell phone and be advised as proceedings are being recorded. For those physically present in the council chambers who desire to address the city council during the meeting, please complete the request to speak form available at the front entrance of the council chamber presented to the city clerk. Speakers physically present and participating via Zoom will be called upon at an appropriate time, and each person will be allowed 3 minutes of speaking time. So convene a regular meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, May 23rd at 6 p.m. The invocation will be given by Pastor Pat, and Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Please stand.
Good evening, everyone. This was my first visit in person. I've been doing this by Zoom for the last several months. I'd like to pray something for you guys tonight that are really the words of King David. King David had a very personal relationship with God. And I hope you might think of God in that same manner. David actually asked in his prayer that God would bend down his ear to hear him, as a child would ask an adult to. So let me pray this short prayer for everyone here. I'm praying to you, O God, because I know you will answer us, O God. Bend down your ear and let's listen as we pray, and show us your unfailing love in wonderful ways. By your mighty power, you rescue those who seek refuge from their enemies. Guard us as you would guard your own eyes, and hide us in the shadow of your wings. And yes, Lord God, that is our prayer tonight for this council meeting, for those in authority in making decisions, Lord. Give them wisdom. And for all of us, Lord, we pray this blessing upon our city, upon our homes, upon our nation. In God's name, that is above every name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Pat. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You too, sir. God bless. All right, Madam City Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Henderson.
Present.
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez Robles.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
I am here.
And Mayor Hussey.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So we have a certificate of recognition for the Salvation Army. Introduce Major Isaac, I hope I don't get this name wrong, Bargan of the Salvation Army. Can you please come to the lecture, and I'd like to have you say a few words right up here. Can you tell us about your great organization and what great jobs you're doing out there?
Dear Major Hussey, City Council members, thank you, and city officials here present. Thank you for this recognition. The Salvation Army has been in this region of us here since 1887. And in 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower proclaimed it the National Salvation Army Week. So every year, mid-May is National Salvation Army Week. We're glad to be here. We're glad to continue serving people, the most needy of our cities. And we're looking forward to working with the city of Grand Terrace in serving the less destitute of our community. Thank you very much.
Well, God bless, sir. We have a certificate of recognition for the Salvation Army in honor of the organization of 157 years of charitable service to those in need throughout the local communities. The Salvation Army dedicated and is greatly appreciated by the city of Grand Terrace, presented this 23rd day of May 2023. It's signed by all of us. Would the council like to say any words on this behalf? Councilman Allen?
Yeah. So I've got a little bit of familiarity. was a member of some service organizations in San Bernardino, and, so sometimes we would be there for Thanksgiving at the mission in San Bernardino. And for a few years, I participated in that, and I learned so very much, and I'm so very impressed with your organization and what it does for our community. And I want to thank you for being there for us. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson?
In addition to the Salvation Army official, I'd like to recognize Mr. Carl Damron from Damron Communications. Carl and I have known each other for longer than I care to admit, but he made a contact with me regarding the day of prayer in front of City Hall, and I placed him in contact with Mr. Bolowitz, and from there forward, things went very smoothly. I'm very proud to have had that occur here, and I thank the Salvation Army for the services provided for 100-plus years. Thank you, Mr. Damron, as well.
Councilmember Robles?
Yes, I just wanted to personally thank you. I've known a number of people that were temporarily homeless, and your organization stepped in, and it's just when you get a phone call from someone across the country and to find out that you folks stepped in and took care of them until they could find something on a permanent basis. And other people that sadly, lose their parents, and for a period of time, they're out of a home. So thank you very much, and blessings to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your organization. It's a true blessing that you guys are committed to working, for the Lord and doing, God's will and taking care of the needy and the poor and the unfortunate. It's a true blessing that you're doing, and you're called upon all the time, and you're there. You answer the call. Anything that God has plans, you guys are always there. Good times and bad, and it's just it's always a humbling experience too. When you know that our Lord's birthday is coming, when we see you guys out there ringing the bell. It's just like, and God bless you guys for doing it, and it's it goes with a kind heart and a whole heart, a humble heart, and you're just doing it out of love for mankind. So God bless you guys for doing that.
God bless you, the council, and the entire city. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to take a picture with you up here. It's always great to recognize such a charitable organization for all the right reasons. All right. Grand Terrace Community Activity Project presented by, I didn't scratch his name out, Dana Molina and Maggie Ballers. I know I probably messed up the names, I'm sorry. So is it Daylin or
Daylene.
Daylene?
But
Okay,
I'm
I had it
Maggie.
right at first. Maggie. All right, it's all yours, Lee.
Okay, perfect. Hi, good afternoon, City Council. My name is Maggie Balderas. This is my team member, Daylene Medina, and our team leader is unfortunately not here, Christian Ruiz, but he did work on this project. So we are students from Cal State San Bernardino, majoring in social work. This past semester, we were put on a task to choose a city and figure out a problem that the city is currently facing. Some other groups decided to do a one-day trash cleanup day or a book drive for one day, but we decided to go even further. So we did have meetings with the local Foundation of Grand Terrence, and we came up with the idea that many local youth are not involved in their community in any way, especially after the pandemic. So after discussing with community members through surveys and meeting with the local organization, the Foundation of Grand Terrence and the Grand Terrence Historical and Cultural Society, we identified that there was a serious lack of community involvement.
So the solution that we came up with was creating a pamphlet that will raise awareness among local youth, as well as showing the organizations that are here in Grand Terrence, volunteering opportunities, and community events that are available in the community. This could really help residents and youth have a guide of what to turn to when they want to get involved. And then I forgot to show you guys our pamphlet like I showed in the picture. So it would be something along the lines like this. And then this would be the front. So we noticed that the city newspaper is right next door. And we thought it was a great opportunity to speak with Margaret Miller and have that opportunity to speak with her and propose an idea of how we can get organizations involved, how we can, spread the word awareness, because I know not a lot of people read the newspaper nowadays, but it would be a great idea to have the newspaper distributed more often or even work with the city to help involve the community and also advertise more organizations in the newspaper. And then that's our team that we met with Margaret that day. So the pamphlet model, this model will help new residents along with current ones find local organizations and committees to be a part of, which will help create a stronger bond in the community. So what we would propose, or our idea, is to have pamphlets at City Hall. That way visitors can read the pamphlets and also connect with residents that are involved in this community and these groups and these organizations. This could really help residents, bond, connect, and overall just get the local youth involved again. Hopefully, you guys can take this into consideration to creating a pamphlet. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it would be a great start. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak here.
Well, thank you. When you first said Grand Terrace, you found out the problem was, I was hoping it wasn't me. It kind of scared me at first. But any of my council like to say something? Councilman Allen, go ahead.
Hey, thank you very much for this presentation. Could one of you please bring that pamphlet up here?
Yeah.
And in your discussions with the youth group, youth population of this community, what was the age? Was it high school or junior high or?
It was
young
high
adult?
school.
High school. And so do you think that a pamphlet like this over at the high school in the proper location would be effective maybe? Something like
Correct.
this also? And also, would something like this be more, less, or about equal in effectiveness as, say, social media?
I think it would be both, especially in high school when at that time you're looking for volunteer hours, it creates more opportunities to get, a internship, anything like that. It will, stand out in your resume. So in high school, it's a great opportunity to look at this pamphlet, and you'll see many organizations that need help, and that are having like the senior parade, that's coming up. They do need volunteers. And just the art show that just passed, they also needed volunteers as well for that.
Yeah, okay. Well, great. Well, hey, well done with this survey, and thank you very much for bringing it to our attention, because I intend to take it very serious.
Thank you.
Well, I think the city manager were looking for a PR firm. So I want to reach out. But thank you very much for, taking the time out and doing that. And yes, that's the biggest thing, is getting the word out. And I know it's different nowadays with social media and, Facebook, Instagram, everything else that's out there. And there's still people that like to read the newspaper too. And then most of the newspaper is digital, and people have problems with that, but thank you. And then like Councilman Allen said, with our youth, we've been trying to get youth to come here and volunteer. I think even our city manager offered a part-time employment program so they could earn money for grad night. And do we get anybody on that?
We're still advertising with them.
We're still advertising. I mean, I'm getting ready to work there. I need some part-time money too, so. But thank you very much. Anybody else? Anything? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon the city council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of the item from the consent calendar for discussion. Do we have any items to remove? None? Yeah.
Item number 8.
8?
Yes.
You said 8?
Yes.
All right. Okay, number 8. Any other ones? All right. And, I need to go back to one thing. Do we have any reordering or adding the items from the agenda? I'm sorry. No?
No changes or additions.
So I got so excited about the special presentation, I forgot about you, Conrad. Okay, so item 8 for discussion. Any other ones? No? So do I have a motion from 1 through 7?
I'll make a motion to move consent calendar items 1 through 7.
I'll second.
So we have a first by Councilmember Allen, and a second by Councilmember Henderson. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, Councilmember Henderson.
The city council and staff probably recall a discussion we had on the status of the housing element submission to the state of California a couple meetings ago. And I was appreciative of the responses that we received from staff. But having gone through item number 8, which for the public's consumption is a professional services agreement that will enable Grand Terrace hopefully to resubmit and get approved from the State Housing and Community Development Department, the housing element of the general plan. After reading through the state's review letter, I believe it's package pages 125 to 133, for reference sake, my concerns previously outlined at the earlier meeting were made even worse by the contents of that document. I want to be clear that this is not a criticism of staff as much as it is an indication of the difficulty and arduousness associated with gaining approval and acceptance from the State Housing and Community Development Department. So in that regard, I have a few questions that I'd like to ask staff and the consultant if they are available. My first question is, was the Housing and Community Development response found on packet pages 125 to 133, the result of the previous consultant's work, J.R. Douglas? Was it in connection with its submission?
Correct. That was the results of the first submission by J.R. Douglas, and the results were fairly consistent with results from most other cities in the state. HCD, I don't want to say changed tact, but had a set of expectations that they've had in previous housing elements that has radically changed to this one. So in the first pass, there was no city in the state that was approved on the first pass. Now, there are a couple that have been approved, and most cities are working through their second submission. So although the answers look like what we submitted was not even close to what they expected, it was what they had expected in previous submissions, and they're looking for something very different this time. But it was a result of the first consultant's work.
My second question is, has there been any substantive progress since the city received a letter from HCD? I believe that letter was originally received by your predecessor, Mr. Duffy, sometime in 2020. So 3 years later, it's been difficult for me to ascertain what, if any, progress has been made in connection with the letter in package page 125 to 133.
We had attempted to work up, and they were working prior to my arrival and continued after my arrival with the original consultant, who proved to be inadequate to the task at this point. So, and that's hence why we took a pause, and we're changing horses on this to bring this across and complete it.
So the proposal that's on tonight's agenda for Michael Baker, maybe you can provide clarification as to whether or not that proposal is directly responsive to the HCD letter, because the number of hours allocated for development of a response to the state HCD letter seems to me to be inadequate. So if we can hear from staff or the consultant as appropriate, that would be helpful.
So the purpose of engaging Michael Baker is to bring this to completion. We've worked with both Michael Baker, who has done several housing elements and actually has completed a couple for other cities in this cycle. So they have a track record now with the HCD's newer expectations, and they feel that they can work with inside these hours to complete it. You know, some of the work from the previous submittal, although the response from HCD had a great many issues, there was a lot of the groundwork that was already previously laid as far as the assessment, the inventory, the housing inventory, the housing stock, and so that a lot of that work will not need to be recreated.
So when you indicate that Michael Baker has worked on previous housing elements and submitted them to the state, were those elements approved?
They have a couple that have been approved in this cycle, yes.
The current cycle? The
current cycle. It's not a guy named Michael Baker. It's a very large company.
Firm, yes.
Yes.
My last comment on this topic is I'd call to the attention of my colleagues the last comment regarding internal consistency between the housing element and the general plan. I've seen that statement before in my prior work experience from the state, and while it's somewhat indirect in its comments, it's a very serious concern, because what the state is putting on the table is the fact that if our housing element cannot be determined to be internally consistent with the general plan, and as we discussed earlier, the general plan can't make consistency findings. So Mr. Bolowitz has indicated on a number of occasions that no other city in the state has an approved housing element, which is true, not taking issue with that. But I don't take, not that he does, but I don't take comfort in the fact that there are no other jurisdictions receiving housing element approval. Grand Terrace has specialized issues and problems given its demography, given its geography, and given its history with respect to being responsive to HCD on the housing element review cycle. The fact that that last comment regarding internal consistency was included in the letter is of some concern, and I just suggest that we approach this with as much urgency as we can. I worked in a number of in 2 jurisdictions where that statement approved, that statement came up. Ultimately, the State Office of Planning and Research imposed building moratoriums, 2 years in one instance, 1 year in another instance, because we couldn't make consistency findings because the housing element was out of whack with the general plan as a whole. I know Mr. Bolowitz understands that and appreciates that, and my comments are to the public and to my colleagues to understand and appreciate how important this is. There's always been somewhat of pushback from Grand Terrace city officials, for good reason, on the housing element review and approval process, but it's not something that can be blithely ignored without there being potentially significant consequences in the future if we don't get this right. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. You might have a question for Councilmember Henderson, or go ahead, Councilmember Allen.
So I got a question that follow up to that. When we make when we contract with someone like Michael Baker or the other firm previous to them, is it just their track record? Is that it? We don't get any kind of guarantees on if they do the element that the state's going to approve it, that they're that good or anything? I mean, they just...
No, there's no money-back guarantee that it will be accepted.
Okay.
And we are, on many of these things, at the mercy of HCD and their interpretation. It is on us to show good faith, to work forward, to progress, to submit, and if we need to, we're probably looking at this, and we're probably going to do some fairly large zoning amendment changes, and we will probably do some general plan amendments tied to this.
Yeah,
So
okay.
This is we're not just going to write up a housing element on the back of a napkin and submit it and get it approved. There's going to be a lot of work that goes into this.
So I asked Mr. Bolowicz a question earlier today, and I just wanted to throw this out at you, Mr. Henderson. You know, there was a bill passed last year in the Senate, in Sacramento, and there's no more single-family zoning in the state. I can't recall the bill number, but did away with it. And I'm trying to understand now that now it's all multifamily. Now, at what level? Yeah, high density, low, or medium density, whatever. But being that there's no more single-family zoning, why is it such a struggle to meet the RHNA now? I mean, wasn't that always kind of the problem? That combined the low and ultra low income, but I mean, when that was always the conflict right there. And now that's been done away with. You would think that we could sort of find a way to make those RHNA numbers now easier anyway.
I'm sorry. I believe on paper correct. Sir. You are correct. However, I don't want to speak for Mr. Bolowitz, but I will, in the sense that Mr. Bolowitz is going to have to bring to the City Council programs, projects, and initiatives that the City Council almost certainly will find distasteful. If you read that letter, it's a pretty dogmatic approach by HCD in terms of what it is attempting to accomplish. And they want right of zone for multifamily, extremely low, very low, low to moderate income. One question while I'm thinking about this that I need to ask Mr. Bolowitz is, do the objective design standards that we approved as a group, as a city, have any positive impact on the proposed resubmission of our housing element?
They may, because we did include that all projects are required to include the low and very low income as part of the project. So we can't defer that and kick the can down the road for those. So it may have a positive impact. And thank you for softening up the rest of the council. Yes, there will be distasteful things that come out of this. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just to step back a little, Councilman Henderson did bring up a legitimate point found on page 133 of our documentation, item E, consistency with general plan. And to read this, it says the housing element shall describe the means by which consistency will be achieved with other general plan elements and community goals, and then it cites a government code and a subsection. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't describe what it is, which when we, as we know with codes and ordinances, when it doesn't give you any specific requirements, that means it's like a large hole with an open shovel. All of a sudden, now it's time to call everything inconsistent. I see this as something that we need to have some communication with back separately with the state. Obviously, they're trying a shotgun approach, and I wouldn't doubt whatsoever that they might build on this down the line to show that inconsistency and then have the general plan negated for the time being so that we end up with some kind of a moratorium. It's happened easier than this in the past. We don't have enough water, you don't have enough sewer. In this case, the state has taken upon itself a kind of a very aggressive stance. I guess I'm going to hesitate from using other language, but an aggressive stance to try to cure its ill in relation to the way the homeless situation as well as under housed population are going to be met. And I suppose if they blow enough smoke at us, eventually somebody will kind of ignore about the deficit that the state has and the fact that it's millions and millions and millions of dollars over budget, and it doesn't have the financing at this point to even make even a clear shot at trying to meet some of its goals that Gavin Newsom set out when he did his original policy statements. So it's easier to lean back on the cities and the counties, the local jurisdictions, and then, like I said, blow a bunch of smoke at them and create an impending lawsuit situation, or at least a basis for a lawsuit. It would seem to me that if we don't respond directly to this specific item, we will be open to some kind of retribution, and it won't be pretty and it will be expensive. The other thing I'd also like to point out in a kind of a like condition, the next time we look at some major players, including the state as well as federal, we might remember the kind of aggressive policies that have been implemented to cover people's heinies when they're not able to make their own goals. So, let's remember who we vote for and when we vote for. Anyway, that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Robles, you have something?
No.
Councilman Henderson?
One last comment. I know I lied the first time, I guess, but one last comment that I think is vitally important. This council has discussed grant acquisition activities, lobbying activities. We've reported on our meetings in Sacramento with our elected representative, putting forth various programs and projects and activities here in Grand Terrace. The bottom line is the state has specific threshold requirements in order to apply for grants. And one of the most significant threshold requirement is having an approved housing element, meaning that if you don't have an approved housing element, you can't apply for the grant funding that you otherwise would be eligible for. I worked in a community where we were the number 2 community in the state to receive a approved housing element designation from HCD. And it gave us an incredible advantage over the local and regional competition in terms of grant acquisition, in terms of economic development, in terms of all the collateral and related issues. So having that, an approved housing element, will be a major plus for Grand Terrace going forward. Our city manager indicated at the last meeting, you know, grow or die. And I think that may not be our motto that we put out there in the marketplace, but it's something that we need to be mindful of as we go forward. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'll chime in as well.
Okay.
One thing to remember is that HCD is taking the position that the city will not have a substantially compliant housing element until not only do we have a housing element that they've blessed, but then we have to adopt the zoning to implement it. So it's a 2-step process. Most cities that my other 2 cities have gone, one city went 3 rounds with HCD before HCD finally blessed it. My other city is on their 2nd round. Most cities are going 2 to 3 rounds before HCD will approve it. And going to Councilmember Wilson's point, a lot of the items identified in their letter are somewhat vague. For example, the affirmatively furthering fair housing, that's a new requirement, and most cities don't even know what that means. It's not defined in the regulations. So it's up to each city to kind of figure it out, and yet HCD is coming back and saying, nope, you haven't met that requirement yet. But we don't know exactly where the goalpost is. And so one of the other issues is that you have multiple reviewers from HCD looking at each city's housing element. So you're getting different interpretations depending on where you are in the state. So there's a lot of problems with this. I 100% agree with City Manager and Councilmember Henderson. We have to expedite this because I mean, I'm hoping for the best that our 2nd round will be approved, but based on what I'm seeing from other cities, I wouldn't put money on it in Vegas. Even, you know, I would think that the first one that we've submitted was compliant with state housing element law. I think you go down the checklist of what is required, I think we met that. The consultant will say they met that. But HCD, under the statute, their position is they get the final say. Technically, I will tell you, technically the final decision maker is not HCD, it is actually the court. The court, if we were ever get challenged, we would have to demonstrate that our housing element that we submitted was compliant with the checklist provided by, or in the state law requirements. So I just want you to be aware of that. This is going to be a long process, but I agree we have to expedite it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Thank you. Councilman Robles?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, you know, I have an open mind to complying with this because we desperately need housing and there's different income levels that need housing. And attending the SCAG workshop in my role as a SCAG committee member, I didn't know who operated in High Grove. It's a beautiful apartment complex with a library attached. It's through Jamboree. They meet all the income thresholds, and it's very nice. You know, and I've known people that on $18 an hour, you're not going to find a place that you can rent on just one income. So, you know, again, I'm going to say we have to treat this as a family thing, that I don't find it distasteful trying to house people. So I hope that when we're going down this road with the consultant, that we're not fighting a battle that I don't agree with. So again, I'm open-minded. And the other thing is in this community, we really don't have land. We do have people with huge lots, and I've seen other jurisdictions And I've seen some private people advertising for the huger lots, maybe to do some development on there. But, you know, for us, I don't see us doing anything because of our size and lack of land that's going to be earth-shattering. And that's all I have to say.
A lot of experience, a lot of stuff we have to roll up our sleeves, and you know, I know it's going to be hard, and some of the residents aren't going to agree, and some are going to agree, but, you know, we get the word out there, and we, you know, informative, the correct word. So I want to know what you guys want to do with this item 8. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilman Henderson, a second by Councilman Allen. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
And thank you for all your comments and your insights, and this will look forward to moving forward on that agenda. And thank you, City Attorney, for your comments on there too. All right, public comment. This is an opportunity for the members of the public to comment on any items not appearing on the regular agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any items not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. The mayor may also request a brief response from staff to questions arise during the public comment, or may request the matter be agendized for a future meeting. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comment? And we have Bobby Forbes up there waving a paper.
Yes, we do have Robert Sanchez.
Okay, Robert Sanchez. Sir, can you come to the podium?
Yes, my name is Robert Sanchez. I've been a resident here for over 20 years. I was on the Grand Terrace Soccer Board and was vice president of the soccer league for about 8 years. So been here a few times now. This is my 4th or 5th time coming to the meeting, so I'm finding out a lot more about the city. And actually, I thank Bobby for, I see her post stuff, so it's got me more involved to come. So I see my clock here. I have about 3 items to talk about. Driving northbound on Mount Vernon prior to Grand Terrace Road, I swerved one time and I got pulled over by a sheriff as I made that right. He came up to me and asked me, "Why did you swerve right there?" I pulled you over because you swerved. I go, "Did you see the potholes at the corner right there? Really, really bad. There's a lot of traffic that goes through there, a lot of parents taking their kids to school. Just want to ask, can you look at that corner? That corner is really, really bad. A lot of holes. My car has hit those holes a few times." And then going up Grand Terrace Road, I've lived on that street 8 years. I've never seen my area ever repaved. It is horrible. Buses travel up and down that street, and that street is a lot of parents on there. I've seen small little sections done, but the main area of that road has not been paved in 8 years since I lived there. I was here about a month ago, talked about the speed on that street. I see the speed bumps on DeBerry Street. I'm assuming they were put there because the speed is too bad. It was so bad there. That's nothing compared to Grand Terrace Road. Grand Terrace Road is like a highway. And guess what? We have no sidewalks. Council, I challenge you guys, go out there any time of the day, sit in my front ring after with a chair. You'll see the speed of the people going through there. There's no sidewalks. I see families walking dogs. I see people walking. There's just a matter of time before somebody's gonna get hit on that street. So those are a couple things I wanted to bring out to the council. The last thing I wanted to ask is you talked about the lack of land here. Is parking an RV on your front yard with the sewer hose into the ground, is that okay? Because if that's okay, I have a big lot. I'm gonna put 4 RVs on my lot and I'll rent them out. We gotta figure that out. I voiced that concern to code enforcement. I've left some documentations. About 3 weeks ago, I stopped in there to leave her a message that she could call me back. The lady who took my message, she said, "Oh, she'll call you back." 3 weeks has gone by. I have not heard back from that lady, okay? Common courtesy, I don't know who her boss is. She should at least call me back. I'm a citizen of this city. I just want to know where that stands because my neighbor said they got a letter stating that that RV now is permanent with the sewer hose into the ground. I have no idea where that sewer hose is. So those are the things I wanted to bring up to the council today. So I know it's a lot, so thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, and yeah, Conrad, we need to follow up on that if you get. And then Lieutenant Layton, about the speeders too. I know we have speeders all over this street. I don't know why, but people, they really don't care, you know, and it's sad. And I know we have a repaving project going on, and, you know, we'll address, you know, we have a little bit of money for a lot of roads. And, you know, we try to take care a little at a time. And I think after we get them all done, we'll have to start over again. So, but Conrad, if you could reach out to them, and Lieutenant Lane, if we could just have when our sheriffs do have time, go by the street, because it is a problem. All right, thank you.
I'm here.
Next one, Bobby Forbes, go ahead.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it very much. Our neighborhood is such a circus with trucks, speeders, loose animals, potholes, and all the cones and variety of signs that say, don't have the trucks come here. So last Friday night, I have movies for you. 5 trucks in an hour between 11 and midnight at the TSG after hours. And then Saturday, I believe, they were moving all of these chassis. They'd have probably 200 chassis, not trailers, on the trucking facility that they were moving with their little beep, beep, beep machine, not the big trucks. I don't know what you call those machines, but they're not supposed to be down there doing that. But Friday was a good score. I had the sheriff down there. Highway Patrol was in the neighborhood. It was great. But the sheriffs can't do anything because it's a civil issue. So I'm going to send all the movies to you. I'm glad to see the weed abatements happening in town. I'm really glad to see the road construction in town. I'm posting so that people are aware and trying to keep the riffraff comments down a little bit, because we all need this done. Even the signs, I'm reading what the cost is of the signs in the agenda. People don't realize how much this stuff costs. But I thank you for what is getting done in town. I did have a call 10 days ago from Patrick O'Brien, the owner of TSG. He said he hasn't heard anything from the city for a while, so he thought everything was peachy keen. I told him it's not. So we need to follow up on that, because they are a pain. They're in my neighborhood still. They're traveling the wrong way, the right way. They stop, they park, they sit there with their trucks, they back up on the bridge. It's a mess. Please follow through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. It's not going on deaf ears, so believe me, the slow wheel's going. But yeah, as far as the truck traffic, you know, because I got a hold of Conrad, we had a semi that was parked on the dirt on Canal Street, so it's to maintain that, and they are tearing up the roads. We have another person at the sites. He wants to have a business on his street with car hauling, so it's an ongoing process. But and they tear up our roads, and we spend good money for these roads, and it's not right for the citizens who have homes there to have to deal with this. So I appreciate everybody's comments today, and please bear with us on, you know, taking care of these issues, and Conrad will follow up on it. So any other public comments?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Public hearings, none. Unfinished business. Item 9, adoption of fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget presented by Christine, Financial Director.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
All of you received a copy of the question I put to the city manager regarding what I believe to be a requirement, whether it's statutory or not, a requirement to have a notice public hearing before the budget is received and approved or considered for approval by the city council. The city manager indicated there was no statutory requirement. I don't take issue with that. I think it's in our best interest, in the city council's best interest, to have a public hearing before the budget is considered for approval. It is the most significant and important document that the council considers. Unless someone is closely monitoring the city council agenda, they're not going to know that the budget is up for consideration tonight. At least with a notice public hearing, a public notice in the local newspaper, we have the opportunity to reach more people than we would taking the current course of action. I want to call the council's attention to the trail system that was installed at Griffith Park. The response by staff at the time was we didn't inform the surrounding neighbors because there's no requirement to do so. That's true. But in my view, we should always go the extra mile when it comes to notification of our constituents about things that impact them, whether or not there's a requirement to do so. And in this particular case with the budget, I would like to see the council continue this item before actively considering its adoption and after a public notice has been published in the local newspaper and other means, whatever means, social media and other mediums that the city council, that the staff uses to promote Grand Terrace.
So are you making a motion to go ahead and to prolong this and have a public meeting first?
That would be my motion, to continue this to a date certain and then
Bring us back after a public hearing?
Correct, sir.
All right, do you have a second?
Well, I'll second
Councilman Rose?
for discussion.
All right, Councilman Rose?
I know in past years, I wasn't sure about budget in the park was useful, but at a community center, whatever, because some of the more eyes on it from the public, maybe there's things I miss that they see, but I am more comfortable with it having a public hearing, but also some kind of discussion with community members in some kind of setting.
Okay, Councilman Allen?
So this is, if I remember right, this is our third meeting, and we had the workshop, and then we had the discussion afterwards. We had the budget on the agenda. That was 2 meetings ago, and then the meeting prior, we had it again. So, but I do understand what you mean because it was only on the agenda. And I about your comment, Councilman Member Henderson, how the public reading the comment. And I participated in those workshops also, you're talking about, Ms. Ruiz. And I think that they're somewhat productive because there are some people that attend there that you won't find here. Mm-hmm. But my question would be, are we going to delay anything that's important here? How much time are we talking about that we need to conduct the workshop and then come back and adopt it, or make the changes that we might learn about in the workshop? Are we going to miss out on any? Maybe I should ask city manager or the finance director. But is anything urgent here that we're going to miss out on?
Go ahead, Conrad.
We don't need to have a budget adopted until July 1st, so that will give us 2 more meetings if you desire. If you recall, last meeting, we had a pretty extensive workshop. That thing went for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we heard public input. There's a fairly large group from the public here at the tail end of that. So, but whatever your pleasure is, historically, we have not had, at least we went back to 2012, and since 2012, we've not had a public hearing associated with that. Some cities it's statutorily required. It just hasn't been the practice here. If that is your desire, then by all means. But to answer your question, our drop dead date is we have to have a budget approved by July 1st. We will have some issues with the Sheriff's Department because their Schedule A, they would like by July 9th. They're not going to get that as it is because the budget won't be approved if you don't approve it. You can't even approve the Schedule A until the next meetings. So they won't get it until whatever the next meeting is, the 13th, the 12th, something like that. So we are starting to back into some of these contractual things. It's not a do or die tonight, but I certainly don't want to push it out to the last meeting of June either.
Right.
Yeah, and I know there's some time requirement for a public notice. I think, is it 2 weeks? How much? 10 days? Okay. So, yeah.
So we would need to get that notice out fairly quickly with an upcoming meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to put that out there for discussion. I haven't made my mind up yet.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor, with all due respect to my colleagues, I'd like to make an alternative motion that we continue our process as prescribed by staff, and that I might mention that we who are at this, behind this dais, might be stuck a little bit in the old ways. This particular budget has been entertained by a very comprehensive analysis that actually analyzes the numbers over a 5-year period. It also identifies the various one-time situations, and anybody that wants to or needs to can question the originator of the budget just to clarify whether or not a particular item is a one-time item or it has been covered. It's also a living document. With it being a living document, it means that this budget is not a situation where it stays stagnant and all we do is report where we go over or we go under or whatever else. We can move numbers in areas that we need to cover and end up with a year end that is clear and concise. Also, with the fact that we have these things, these documents online and available to anybody that wants to look at it, including people that are not even in our city for that matter, I would say that we have probably exercised, due diligence in providing, the commensurate amount of analysis and review that we need to be able to finish our process. If there is something specific, rather than, we see some kind of a glaring error, or if there are some people that don't want to use Facebook as the medium, but rather use the communication devices that we actually do monitor at the city, and want to make comments, or for that matter, they want to show up at the meeting, or they want to have some phone correspondence, or if they want to be on walkie-talkie or whatever, we have all of that available. And I think, again, that we've exercised the amount that we need to do to be able to allow our situation to go forward. And I don't think we're concealing anything from anybody. I'm a numbers guy, and if I had some things in there that seemed hokey-dokey, I very definitely would have scored a meeting with either the city manager or the person that's been involved in this thing, and would have ground it down to the nth degree. I think we've had an advantage over time that we've been very good at making sure that we are down to the bricks and sticks on our budgets, and that we're not padding it in any way. And that way we know that we are working with real numbers. And with that, and it being a live document, I would like to continue our process as prescribed by the staff.
All right, do I have a second on Mayor Pro Tem Wilson's
That's an alternate motion.
to move forward?
I'll second.
Okay, so now I got a coin flip. So the thing is, on here, I understand what Councilmember Henderson is saying, because we always had, when you said 2012, that's kind of hard to believe, because we always had budget in the park. And on the budget in the park, we had the same people kept showing up, though. I think we had budget, how many parks each park, I believe?
I think 2.
2 parks. So we had that, and then that was the question, like, what do you want to see? And of course, everybody in the budget in the park wanted to see, sheriff coverage and the roads fixed, and growth and street lights and sidewalks and stuff. So, so I understand where Councilman Henderson's come from, and I understand where Mayor Pro Tem's coming from. That we had a small workshop, and do we even have any public comment that day? I know we did it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? I don't think we even had a public comment on that workshop. So my question, and it was asked, if we don't do the budget tonight, and you saying the Schedule 1A for the sheriff, if we came back next week for a public workshop here or in the park, wherever you want, and we did that next week, and then we brought this proposal on the first council meeting in June, and it got approved, will we make the deadline for the sheriff's department and all of our other budgets?
No matter what we do, we're not going to make the sheriff's deadline. Because we just got their final Schedule A numbers today with a request.
Was that handed to you today by the captain?
Yeah. So we just got their final numbers today, which are actually a little bit below what we budgeted. Thank you. With the request that we approve that and sign it by the 9th, which we cannot do because our next meeting is the 13th and that has not been noticed and part of the agenda. So regardless, they're not getting that thing before the 14th.
So will
I'd
we
rather
be-
not push it out to, and you know, and they have to take it to the board for approval.
So we'll
I'd-
be covered with sheriffs no matter what anyway, right?
I would assume that come the 9th, the sheriffs aren't going to pack up their stuff and leave, and that
We'll do
we will work through this, but it,
All right, City Attorney, you have anything you want to say?
Not on this one.
No. Well, we're paying you big bucks to say something, you know, you got to say something on it. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead, then Councilman Allen.
Mr. Mayor, the point of order, there is a motion on the floor, and there is an alternative motion, and the way I understand it, the alternative motion gets voted on first.
Yes.
And if it fails, of course, then it would be the original motion.
Correct.
And so I would ask that we go ahead and call for a vote.
Discussion.
Discussion, please.
Yes.
Yes. All right, so it's Mayor Pro Tem was go ahead, his motion was to go ahead and proceed, and seconded by Councilman Allen, correct?
That's
All right.
correct.
So that's the alternative, so can we please vote on that?
No, we need deliberations.
Oh, deliberation, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Councilman Robles.
So I'm inclined to support dealing with this today. Because there's, you know, a lot of what ifs. I couldn't watch the workshop online. My calendar was incorrect. I guess every time, there's so many Thursdays in a month, and then my calendar got corrupted and I had a conflict. I was able to watch the meeting, but not the workshop. But I've looked at this, you know, over and over again. I think we should go ahead and continue. There's a lot of what ifs. We don't have the usual May revise this year because tax returns were delayed. I'm looking to see, and there's some other questions that I've had about redevelopment funds, you know, what happened to them, and you're working on that. At the mid-year, maybe at the mid-year we can look at this a little bit differently and do some public outreach then.
Well, thank you for reminding me about deliberation. I can't turn my neck that well. Councilman Henderson, you had something to say?
Thank you, sir. My comment was procedural, not substantive. I have no issues with the budget as presented, the workshops that we conducted, the information that we received from staff. And at the appropriate time, I'm prepared to vote for approval. As a matter of philosophy, and I understand the council, my colleagues may feel different about it, I think that the document that governs our entire operation should be considered and approved in a notice public hearing for the reasons I previously stated. My survey, so to speak, is purely anecdotal, but every time I've talked to someone or asked them whether they are aware of the budget being on the agenda, it's been 100% no. Now, a notice public hearing isn't going to correct that, but it does place the city in the position of taking every step necessary to inform its electorate and its constituency. So, procedural, not substantive. Thank you for listening.
Councilman Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. And so it sounds to me like, because I think the procedure that Council Member Henderson is referring to is well-grounded. And I did participate in our workshops that we had previously that you two had referenced, you know, the ones in the park and that sort of thing, the ones we have at the senior center. And I thought even though they were lightly attended, it, like Councilmember Henderson pointed out, it provides another opportunity for even more. There were those that were there are not those that we saw here. So at least we did get those voices. So I would just posit that and suggest that perhaps while we do, because we're all in agreement that this is a good budget and we had our workshop on it, perhaps we should put that procedure in place, pass a resolution, so that in the future that we do have that public outreach and that public workshop that you're referring to. I would support that, but I seconded his. But I would support something like that for us in the future.
All right. Any other comments? So we're voting on something to move forward, right? Okay.
Yeah, the item on the floor is whether to move forward tonight, yes.
So
or
we're
no.
voting to move forward so we can listen to the item, then we're voting on the item,
Correct.
correct? Okay. So please vote.
Motion passes with Council Members Allen, Rodriguez Robles, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, and Mayor Hussey voting yes. Councilmember Henderson votes no.
All right. So now it's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Christine Clayton, Finance Director. So we're going to go over the proposed budget, which you guys saw 2 weeks ago. Nothing has changed. Sorry. Nothing has changed. It's the same numbers, but we'll just go back over it just for everybody's review. So these are our 2030 visions and goals, and you will see that the budget meets several of them. And so for the city of Grand Terrace, you can see that our general fund revenues are projected to be $7,800,000 and change, and then our expenditures are projected to be $7,800,000 with a projected surplus of around $56,000. Our sales tax that's been projected by HDL is $1.2 million. Our property tax projections, again provided by HDL, are $2.9 million. And our property tax VLF swap is $1.6 million. I just want to let you guys know that our unfunded PERS liability on June 30th, 2021 was $5.3 million. And that same liability as of June 30th, 2022 was $3.4 million. And for fiscal year 23-24, the UAL is going to be about $450,000. And the cost of the annual will be $160,000 for a total of $610,000. The city's unfunded other post-employment benefits on June 30th, 2021 was $1.9 million. And that same liability on June 30th, 2022 was a little over $1 million. So we're bringing both of those down. Total revenue for all funds is $12.3 million, and total expenditures are projected to be $12.1 million for a net of $186,000. And below that, you can see a table for the last 5 years of our three highest areas, UAL, sheriffs, and salaries. And so you can see throughout the years they've gone up. And you can see our UAL has increased considerably over the years. So now we're going to go into our general fund. And so these are all of our revenues. And you can see in the first column the adjusted budget from 21-22, the actuals from 21-22, our adjusted budget from 22-23, our projections for 22-23, and our proposed budget. And I would like to stop here real quick. And Councilmember Wilson had a couple questions last time that I was not able to answer, so I would like to give him his answers. So under franchise fees, right here, I went back for those 5 years and looked at the actuals, and the increases range anywhere from 4.2%, 5.6%, all the way up to 11% increases, an increase from year to year. So they do vary. So my projection of $650,000 for next year's budget is only an increase of $15,000, which is about 2.4%. So I'm fairly under what we could estimate, but I wanted to be conservative. And then his next question was on these license fees and permits. So that number consists of business licenses, dog licenses, building permits, public work permits, but a good chunk of that money was when staff did the reconciliation with the Lewis Group, and we were able to bring in an additional $240,000 from funds that we had expended and they had not reimbursed us for. So that makes up a good chunk of that figure. So as you can see, all the categories that make up the revenue is $7.8 million. And you can see the different pieces and what they represent. Property taxes is 59%, sales tax is about 13.7%. Now on to our expenditures. You have the same columns, and you have all the categories going down. And our expenditures total, $7.8 million. And then here's just a graph representing our expenditures. Are there any questions?
Does council have any questions? No? Councilman Robles?
So the only question I have then is that the only uncommitted funds that we're going to have is 56,000 something, the fund balance.
That is what would be left over from the revenue expenditures. Is not the actual fund balance, but that would be remaining from those revenues, correct, for general fund.
And there's no other discretionary revenues anywhere, right?
Hold on, go back in your slides, Christine.
Yeah, but we've
So
committed $500,000 of it.
There are fund balances that are unexpended, but we're balancing general fund revenue and expenses. Go back some more, please. Keep going. Trying to.
No, I think it's right there. Total revenues, city revenues, 1 point.
No, it was on a graph.
Graph, okay.
Because you had total. No, there is. When it comes up, I'll see it. About 175,000 in total
That number at the
unexpended
end.
funds. So that 175,000 is general fund and also revenues in other funds that come in, Measure I money, street funds, those type of things that are that we have not assigned. So in general fund, there's about $60,000 of unassigned money that we're essentially saying we will find something for it to do it over the course of the year. As Mayor Pro Tem Wilson said, this is a malleable document. And things, this will not survive contact throughout the year. And then the remainder of that is special funds, and those funds are restricted and can only be used for certain things.
Right.
But there is an additional about $100,000 of money that is able to be used for other things, primarily streets and roads and sidewalks and things
But they're,
associated with
see,
that.
they're restricted, and so mine is discretionary. There's no, this is a pretty much, no, not bare bones, but a pretty strong baseline city budget.
This is a baseline city budget, and, you know, unfortunately, the city, by the time we do what we need to do, there isn't that much left over, and we specifically did not assign that, as much as we could, that 60,000, to leave that at some point for the council's future discretion for some, whatever the activity is. Normally, city staff would say, all right, this is important to us to plant trees or paint a mural or whatever, redo the basketball court, whatever it is. And we're saying, rather than staff come up with this, we're going to set this money aside, and over the course of the year then, the council will come up with a project and a way to expend those funds in a mechanism that really meets the council's needs. We've carved out a little bit of savings, and have put that
So
in
that'd be
play
like
for
for a future priorities workshop kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yes.
And the other question I have, has the, I guess was the numbers used to come from? Anyways, the tax collector or the auditor would come out with a delinquency rate. Did they give any, they would tell jurisdictions there's a 5% delinquency rate in property tax revenues. Have we gotten any notification on how to plan?
We have not gotten anything from the auditors. However, our company, HDL, does do our property tax review. I'd have to go back and look exactly what the number is, but it's relatively low, our delinquency rate. And throughout the region, I just heard a talk from a regional economist last week, and throughout the region, property tax delinquencies are pretty much non-existent. And even great economic news, so are credit card, delinquencies, home mortgage delinquencies. People are, because of stimulus, flush with cash, they're able to pay their bills. So we're not seeing property tax delinquencies. What we are seeing in the property tax segment, we're probably not going to see the growth that we saw historically, because as the number of sales decline and the property tax changes upon the sale of the property when it's assessed at a new value, you're not moving out of a 3% loan into a 7% loan. So people are staying in their homes. Therefore, we're not going to see that change. It'll stay pretty much flat, or maybe even decline a little bit as somebody sells a house for less than what they bought it, if they really need to get out of it.
Yeah, and I just comment, the 11 years I've been dealing with this budget, the sales tax have really gone up for us.
Our sales, you said, has not gone up for us?
No, I said in the 11 years that I've been here, sales taxes have really gone up.
We met with the sales tax people yesterday?
Monday, yes.
Monday. It all flows together. Our sales tax in the last 8 years has gone up by 50%, and it has gone up dramatically. In the last quarter, our sales tax went up almost 20%. That is in everybody's view, an unsustainable rate. So at some point, they will flatten out. Our 25% of our sales tax comes from the building and building supply and business sector. And as building has slowed down, there hasn't been a significant housing start to attract in 18 months. As building slows down, that sector will slow down, and we're anticipating those revenues will, at best, stay flat. On the positive side, we've opened up a couple of businesses with Wingstop, and Taco Bell is here. So we're seeing some of these increases in sales tax through businesses that are doing well. Mazzuli's, Kaz Ramen, the Arco station is reporting. Oops, I can't say that. Disregard. Some of our fuel is increasing. So we're seeing some of our businesses really taking off and being successful. And so that is helping in the sales tax.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I have a question. So you said we have $56,000 to the plus. But let's just say, because being on all these conventions the last month, I don't even know how many we went to, I lost track, but one of the things was with every city was the homeless crisis and sheriff coverage. And I know, and I talked to Loma Linda on there twice, and it was about the flock camera system. And I go, well, where'd you guys get the money for your camera system? And they said from their COP grant. Now I know we got $40,000 from from the county and we did extra patrols and stuff, and I'm sure Loma Linda got more, and they were able to afford that. So if the residents here, because the biggest thing is more coverage and stuff, and I know Councilman Allen, he talked to when we were in Sacramento, I believe, for the flock cameras. So what would it take for this city to get the flock camera, or is this even part, to be in this budget? Well, can we ever afford that?
We priced out the flock camera. I'm trying to remember what that was about. For some reason, I'm saying about $200,000 by the time we get the installation, and then annual cost of The annual cost actually wasn't bad, was, if I remember right, about $40,000 relative to the cost. Our COP grant money goes to fund the overtime sheriff, the additional sheriff that we have on duty. So we're using that to put boots on the ground. So if we cut back on our patrol guy, then we can afford the COP grant money. We can do it in piecemeals. So we do a couple of cameras this year with the money that we have. If we end up this fiscal year with a surplus, I intend to bring this surplus back to the council and not let it go to the general fund and have it be assigned and used. I think our general fund reserves are in really good shape, and we're in good position that we don't need to hyper-reserve ourselves and just have more money holed away in the bank. That this is money that if we didn't spend it this year, we'll come back next year and figure out ways to make it work for the community. But the answer, how do we get these cameras on the money that we have now, it would probably have to be piecemealed over the course of 3, 4, 5 years.
And just like what I think Councilman Robles said, like the 56,000, I almost said $1 million. That'd be great if we were $56 million.
That would be great.
56,000 plus, like if we have like a special project for the youth or the community events or something like that, that would come out of the general fund if we need it for that, or?
We have some money budgeted already for our events, our regular annual events, the Light Up Grand Terrace and the community days and those type of things. We also, you mentioned homelessness, we budgeted money specifically for homeless camp cleanup. Last year, we did it out of general fund and just because we needed to, but we know this is going to be a recurring cost, so we have money set aside for that. So we're not going to be dipping into that. But if there is anything that's not a recurring or something that we haven't done in the past, a new thing, we would have to look at that money for that.
And you mentioned about sales tax, if it goes flat, and will the other businesses be able to sustain that? I know we have future growth coming, and we don't have a crystal ball, but will we look pretty good if it went flat on that other?
Our sales tax projections across, really, I went overboard on it. I really shouldn't get into specific businesses, but in the food and hospitality sector, we have a couple of businesses coming in. They should help with that because it's brand new revenue. So we're not we're not taking money from one business and somebody spending it at another one. So there should be new money coming in from that. Not huge money, but $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. The problem is as a business opens, we don't see that sales tax for up to 3 quarters or 9 months before that cash starts coming in. They generate the business, then they have to submit it to the state at some point, then the state validates it and then submits it to us. So it's usually a 9-month lag between the actual sale and us getting that cash. So some of these businesses that are coming online now, we have the Advanced Auto Parts, we have Starbucks, these things that are starting up, we probably will not see any of that sales tax this year.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right. Councilman Robles.
Yeah, and the sale of the fire station was 1 million or 1.2 million?
I believe it was
1.2 million.
1.2.
So then 700,000 of that is where?
So 100,000 of that was decided by City Council. That was going to go into a fund, that was going to go into an investment fund. And then another 500,000 of it was going to the PARS. It was going to be a Section 115 trust that you guys voted on. So that's 600,000. So there's roughly 550,000 left.
And the remaining funds, and I think that's what you're asking about, where's the remaining funds? What we did is, if you go back through the funds section of the budget, we created a separate fund that says fire station sale. So it doesn't get dumped into the general fund, it doesn't get diluted, and we don't spend it and not, and piecemeal it out. That money is available for, that's one of those fund monies that is available for projects.
Yeah, because my issue is that we haven't had any policy discussion about what to do with the balance of it.
That's why we put it in a separate account, separate from everything, so that it stays there until we have that discussion and we get direction from council on where that should go.
All right. Any other questions? Councilman Henderson?
I think I'm maybe mistaken on the 1.2 million. I thought there was going to be set aside in a fund for council to prioritize and appropriate at a given point in time. What I'm hearing is that allocations have been made to certain activities or funds with a unreserved or unassigned balance of roughly 550,000.
That is correct.
That's correct.
The only policy discussion I remember is 500,000 to the investment fund.
There was 500,000 to the investment fund, and then what was it?
I want to say the other 100,000 was for the OPEB trust.
Oh, yeah, correct. Okay.
So 600,000.
Those items came before the council?
They did. They
yes.
came through I want to say September, October of 2022.
Oh, okay. That's why I don't remember. Thank you.
There was a subcommittee,
welcome.
Councilman Henderson, and that's what, yeah. Yeah, you weren't left out of loop. Yeah, it was before. All right, so do we have any discussion on this? No? Comments? Yeah, I'm proud of our city staff. I mean, like I said, going to all these conventions and meetings and stuff, and I went to this one, and they had cities get up there and they talked about their budgets, and a lot of them are in the negatives, and I was proud to say we're looking in the positive. But I couldn't beat Redlands. They were really in the positive, and I asked the mayor there, and I go, well, how did you guys really get in the positive? And I guess the voters voted for a sales tax increase. So that's how they're really in the positive. So, he said this, I think it was a crazy amount, almost like in the millions on that thing. So, but thank you, city staff, for everything you did. So, now what we're looking for is a motion, correct, for this? If we want to approve the budget?
Correct.
Okay.
I move adoption of the, let me see what year I'm in. 23-24 annual budget.
Second.
Okay, I have adoption by Councilman Robles and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Pardon me, Mayor?
Yes.
But just for the record, I do not have any public comments for this item.
Oh, and the public, I knew I was forgetting something, so go ahead, public comment before we make a vote. Do we have a public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay.
But just
I
for the
didn't see it
record,
in
I
my
wanted-
script here.
I wanted to
must
make
have
that
erased it or something. That's all right. So there's no public comment. We have a first and a second, and please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. All the questions. And so we have item G, new business, approval of relocation of trash enclosure at Veterans Freedom Park and approval agreement with Martin Lucas for demolition and construction of the new trash enclosure authorized by the city manager to execute the agreement subject to the city approval. City attorney approval as formed. So Luis is presenting this. It's all yours, buddy.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, Luis Gardea, City Building Official. So tonight, I will be providing a presentation regards to the demolition and construction of a trash enclosure at the Veterans Freedom Park, also known as the Pico Park. So this item is consistent with our 2030 vision goals with goal number 2, to ensure our fiscal viability, committed to a balanced budget, while at the same time trying to build up our infrastructure in the city facilities. So background, City of Grand Terrace Veterans Freedom Park currently has one deteriorated trash enclosure. Frequently, it's used by members of the community. In addition to city staff, it also includes members such as the Little League season, usually used during that time. Also, the Veterans Day annual ceremony is used. Of course, guests that use the park, they're also more than welcome to use it, and usually it's used during that time. City staff sent out an invitation to submit bids and contacted various local contractors, including B, General Licensed Contractors, and C29, which are also known as masonry licensed contractors that focus on brick building. The companies and their total base bids are as follow. So we did receive 3 bids. The first bid is with a estimate of $54,162. Second bid is $33,000, and the third bid came out at $39,710. So the scope of work includes demolition of the existing trash enclosure and construct a new trash enclosure. So the new enclosure will be more accessible to guests and include a retaining concrete curb, resurfacing of the asphalt surface, a new wooden cover, and installation of existing metal gates from the existing trash enclosure, along with any needed upgrades. So we will be using the existing metal gates that the existing trash enclosure has. And then also the enclosure, more importantly, will be built per the 2022 California building codes and will go through routine inspections performed by the building division to make sure that we reach compliance, make sure that it's accessible for all our park, our residents, our guests, also to make sure that it conforms to the accessibility for Chapter 11B in California Building Code, which mostly also known as the ADA, but it's the accessibility code. So here's a picture of the, excuse me, of the existing trash enclosure. So as you can see, this is where it's located right now. That's how it looks like. And just to provide you with a preview of how it's going to look like of the proposed design, this was taken from Wingstop over at Terrace Plaza. So we do intend to use a design very similar to this. Of course, it'll be very different color. And as mentioned a few moments ago, as you can see, this one here has 2 gates. The one that we will be building will be, of course, 1 gate. And more importantly, it will also have a side door, which you typically see this more in newer trash enclosures because of that accessibility requirement. Also, to point out, it will also have a cover as well, which will be will help significantly in making sure that people don't illegally dump on our new trash enclosure. So staff is recommending the City Council award and approve an agreement with Martin Lucio, who's a licensed contractor, in an amount not to exceed $33,000 plus a 10% contingency of $3,300 for demolition and construction of a new trash enclosure at Veterans Freedom Park, and authorize the city manager to execute agreement subject to city attorney approval as to form. Alternatively, City Council may also reject all bids. So the fiscal impact will be $33,000 plus 10% contingency for a total of $36,300, which will come from the general fund. And that's it. If the council has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Councilman Allen, any question?
Are you moving thank you for that report, by the way, it was a good report. Are you moving the location of the dumpster from the enclosure from where it is currently?
Yes, it'll be relocated.
Can you tell me where?
So I apologize for not providing an actual site plan, but excuse me, it'll be more towards the, to get my bearings, western side, southwest side of the park corner, southwest corner of the park, towards the, kind of next to the entrance.
Okay. What are you going to do with the space where the current dumpster is?
Sure. That space will just be retained as asphalt concrete area.
Parking spot?
It's not even really compliant for parking, so one thought was that at some point in the future, if we do redo the lot, we could create handicap parking there, but that's not part of this project.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Rollis?
Okay, just to be clear, so this was a request from the mayor to have this discussion, and this is essentially your project.
It was, yes, was requested by the veterans when I was out there at one of the conferences, and the veterans requested this, so I asked to bring it to the city council.
Okay. What is deteriorated of the one's current state?
So I'll bring it back here. You show the image. So there's some items you can see here. Oh, I'm sorry. As you can see here, I mean, this is basically the concrete, the slab is basically already in deteriorated shape. I mean, you can't really see it through the picture, but because of years of water runoff, concrete naturally, basically concrete is a hard state of cement. Over the years, when you have continuous water runoff, it's just gonna go ahead and make this weaker. So additionally, there's more stains here, which will generate even potholes close to this area. So really, it's just that this trash enclosure, it's really in bad shape towards the inside. Also, as I had mentioned previously, is we do intend to put a cover on top, so that will go ahead and prevent any unpermitted or illegal dumping.
So another question was that this was considered unsightly in viewing the Veterans Wall. Is that correct? That this was considered a detriment to viewing the Veterans Wall?
That is, from what I understand, one of the comments from the veterans group that asked this to be brought forward.
Yeah, because I went out there and I also filmed it, because essentially, then you have the bathroom. So when you move that, you still have the bathroom that's going to be obscuring a good portion of the wall. But just to, well, when we get to the deliberations, I'll say what I think.
You sent me the picture, and I know you took the trouble to go down there. So I want to make sure that we can see that frame of reference that you have as well.
Yeah, so the bathroom's right behind it.
And then we have the photo you took too. Is that photo available too, or just the video? Okay, yeah, just I wanted to make sure that was there since you took the trouble to go out there and do that.
Councilman Henderson?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused. So I'd appreciate help from my colleagues. This item was proposed as an agenda item, and then it was removed, and now it's back, but I don't understand how it came back. Did we, as a council, agree to that?
Yes, it was proposed as an agenda item. We realized that we did not go through the future agenda item process. We went back, went through the future agenda item process. It was placed on as a future agenda item, and this is now before you as that item.
Okay, thank you for that. So I assume the budget that we just adopted includes the $33,000.
That will come out of this year's budget, and there are funds available for that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Allison? Oh, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, before we go into deliberation, we have a public comment.
Yes, Robert Sanchez.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Been involved with the youth leagues here a long time. $36,000 to replace an eyesore. I could use that money a lot better to help some of the youth in this city. I mean, I've been to that park quite a bit of times. If you took a survey from people and say, do you want to demolish that, the trash can, replace it for $36,000, or put $36,000 into something else within the community, or just even to some of the youth activities, I think people 100% of the time would say, let's put that money back into the city. Make it look better. If that's the concern, just give it an uplift. Don't knock it down to move it. You know, we can't all get what we want in here. You know, this is $36,000. That's a lot of money to invest in the park there just because it's an eyesore. I just don't see it. I mean, I hope you guys really reconsider that in the agenda. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
No, Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to deliberation. All right, so I'll go ahead and start. So this, when the Veterans Freedom Park was established and it was renamed, we were on a subcommittee, myself and Councilman Robles at the time, and when the park was renamed, big ideas came out to honor our veterans for this. The basketball court, trash compactor, or trash receptacles, lights, signs to honor our veterans. Over the course of the time, it was requested that one of the biggest things was the removal of the trash container because it took away from honoring the memorial for the veterans. Now, it was even requested, not even by veterans, but by a lot of youth too, and the staff and the baseball committee and stuff. And so through the years, that was requested, and so when I asked the city manager if we could put that on the general item or put it on the public comment or whatever, the agenda, and then it got mixed up. But when the price came at $33,000, that's pricey. You know, I told him just give us veterans some sledgehammers and we'll knock it down ourselves and we'll do all that. Now, and I know the youth, we have items on the drawing board for the youth. So the youth in this city is not going on deaf ears. I started as a coach on both baseball and soccer for decades. We do have a funds for the youth that they come and they get and they require and we're able to pass funds away. So saying that we don't do enough for our youth, do we? We continue to work with our youth. We give them the, I can't even think of the general fund, we give them out of the community benefit fund. Mm-hmm. We give to our youth programs, we do a lot of waivers. We work strong with our youth program as far as the baseball and the soccer team. We had a special event for the soccer team that they had a tournament in which we waived all kinds of waivers that the city could have had money for. So not giving money to the youth, that sits hard on me. Especially since that's how I got on the council, because that's where I started, from the youth and working with the community. But being a veteran, do I see that as an eyesore? I see it as an eyesore, and I see it as a disrespect to that Freedom Wall, which a lot of men and women in this community, the surrounding community, served. So when they pull in there, it's nice to see that wall. There was talk about putting decals on that, and it still took away from the beauty of the wall. So I'm just one vote, and I'm hoping my council will vote with me on this to support our veterans. It is a lot of money. We always support our veterans. I don't know how much we have given to our veterans in the past years, but I'm requesting, and it'd be the honor if they would vote for this to get this eyesore away. If they do, that'd be great, and my respect goes out to them. If they don't, my respect still goes to them. So that's my deliberation. I don't know if anybody else would like to say anything. Councilman Allen?
Mike, the things I think about with that dumpster or that facility now, and one of the next agenda item, I'm going to be, if you look at the agenda, you'll see that I have an issue with trash enclosures in the city, and I've asked for it. And so this trash enclosure happens to be one of the ones that's a problem, because I was pleased to see when the presenter here, when Luis gave us our presentation, that this is going to have a roof on it, and it's going to have lockable gates and doors on it. And my reason for that is I want us, in our next item, we can discuss it, but whether this gets moved or not, it needs attention, it needs work, it needs a roof on it, it needs security, because I'm not as much worried about people putting stuff in it who aren't supposed to, as I am all the people in the city that are taking stuff out and strewing it everywhere, all over and the parking lots. There are groups of people that are just diving through these dumpsters, and it's like I've watched them, and they just go crazy throwing stuff out, and they don't put it back. And so this dumpster, whether it gets moved or not, needs attention, and this trash enclosure, and which is going to cost money. And so if we can make it, if we can beautify the area while accomplishing what I'd like to see accomplished, then I would support that, because it's just going to cost money anyway. And if we're going to beautify the area, then I would support moving it. And also, that it smells in the summertime, and it's close to where they do where you can get the food, where they make the food at. It attracts insects and rodents and bees. It's closer to where we do the food at. It needs to be on the other side of the parking lot.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Robles?
Well, there's two sets of issues. One was, I'm accustomed to working in government when there's capital improvements to be made. The city engineer or the staff, do a review, and they come out with either, a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. And, I find out the wrong way that instead of honoring our code of ethics and bringing this as a future agenda item, that 2 members sat with the city manager and came up with this proposal, and it was buried in a consent calendar. And if it wasn't for some stray comment I happened to pick up that drew my suspicions, I would not know. I would have thought it was a staff recommendation. The second thing is that, if we do 5 of these, it'd be $150,000. And mind you, we have a projected fund balance of $56,000 and change. If we did 10 of these, it'd be $300,000. So my feeling is that we would have, and I didn't know until this meeting that we had any, because I would ask about the $500,000, and it was kind of like, well, no, you can't spend it on one-time issues. And my feeling was, well, we haven't had a policy discussion on this. So to me, if these kinds of recommendations from this body, we should have as a good best practice doing this when we're discussing any of our recommendations of things that need to be done. If we're going to have a future priorities workshop, then this should be in it so we weigh how much money we have. But I don't see it as an eyesore. I don't see it as so deteriorated that we have to spend this kind of money now. But it should, get some improvements, and it should be, put on the CIP some way that we know that it's going to be addressed. But when the people supporting the wall came, all we had was that little strip of land, and they gladly took it. And we've been doing this for a number of years. And really, I never even noticed it. I thought it was going to be a trash thing just thrown there, dilapidated, and I went, and I was surprised to see how well it was screened. And as far as the sight line, then you still have a bathroom, and let me tell you, that bathroom doesn't smell very good around food or events either when you're there. So that's all I have to say.
Councilman Henderson?
I think the project is laudable. I have similar concerns Councilman Robles just articulated regarding the priority. Is this a higher priority than other issues facing the city and facing the city council? We don't know, because I've been real clear about the need for a workshop on priority setting. And I continue to make that request because I think it's absolutely necessary. I also think that we need the update on Vision 2030 so that it informs our priority setting and future budget making activities. So Mr. Allen and the mayor have made very cogent and persuasive arguments as to why we should go forward. But the gentleman who spoke to this issue earlier about priority setting, I think that resonates with me. I'm not aware of Councilmember Robles' comments about the mayor and Councilmember Allen meeting with the city manager on this, but if there's some accuracy, truth to that, you know, that's something that should be handled by the priority setting of the entire city council and the discussion of various programs, projects, and activities that we want to consider. I think we're all tempted from time to time to come forward with a project or an activity because someone close to us, either, you know, organizationally or in terms of the activity, wants us to promote a particular program or project. That happens, but at the same time, I think we're one body, 5 members, and I think we need to be considerate of the process and considerate of each other. $33,000 is a significant amount of money. It's a number that I can't put into context because I don't know what's available, the total amount of money that's available, and I also don't know what other competing activities may be in play. So from a transparency standpoint and a fairness standpoint, it would seem that we'd want to back up a little, start this process all over, and see whether or not there's general consensus on the council, or at least the majority wanting to move forward on this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Allen?
Yeah, just real quick, I just, you know, maybe city manager might try to refresh my memory, but I'm not a champion. I didn't go to him on this to champion this thing. This wasn't me. I wasn't the second person that she's referring to. So I don't know who it is, but I'm not the champion of this. I just, any discussion I had with city manager or staff was just to find out about it when it came up on the agenda. But I just wanted to.
I was just told, I was told that, so it was incorrect.
Thank you.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, you have anything? Okay, so we need a first and a second first. So do I have a first motion and a second? I'll go ahead and make a motion for it to approve the item. I have a second.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Allen, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, Bill Hussey voting yes, Council Member Henderson, and Council Member Rodriguez Robles votes no.
And I just, one final comment. This, when I asked how it affects the fund balance, I was told it was already programmed, okay? And then another thing is when you have 1 hour of asking staff for something, when you put out bid packages and then the review that has to be taken, that's more than an hour. So there's a lot of things wrong with this issue.
All right. So let's see, now we're at, excuse me, request for future agenda items by City Council. So under this section, pursuant to the requirements of the Brown Act, no items may be considered other than listed below. So Councilman Allen, you are requesting a good landlord rental program for discussion?
That's right, Mayor. I just want to find out if the history of this program and the value of this program today for us, and if it's something that we really need. I'd like to find out why we instituted it in the first place a few years back, and if it's something that is worth the time and effort that's spent on it by our code enforcement and our city staff, if it benefits our city. And yeah, that's what I would like to discuss about the Good Landlord Rental Program.
Okay,
I move approval.
I'll second. Please vote. Oh, wait, any item for discussion? We don't, not discussion, we're just going to push forward, right? So please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So your second request, Councilman Allen, is retrofit requirements to secure all trash enclosures throughout the city?
Yeah, I'm referring to the commercial and retail establishments that have these, like we saw the pictures of earlier in the previous presentation, those that are owned by the malls and the shopping areas around us, because what inspired me to ask for this on the agenda item is I was over at the where the Walgreens is and driving through the parking lot, and I noticed the trash enclosure that's at the back of the parking lot it's similar to the one at the park that you were talking about moving. And there were two individuals. The gate was open. One was in the dumpster, and they were, I mean, it was just, stuff was just flying out of that dumpster all over the yard, and they were just picking through it, and it was just, and the wind was blowing it everywhere. And I thought, you know, there needs to be a way to prevent that from happening, because, you know, they're not going to pick the litter up that they've strewn everywhere. And so if there was in our personal building codes, if we could ensure that those trash enclosures have roofs on them and doors on them, and they are inaccessible to unauthorized personnel.
So will that be for all the businesses to have them retrofit their trash enclosures?
Yes.
All right. Sounds good. I have a motion on this one for further discussion. Councilmember Henderson.
Speaking from experience, the retroactive implementation of any requirement on a private citizen or local business that requires that business to expend funds after it's gone through the normal, regular development review and approval process is problematic. I think the goal is certainly an excellent one, but I don't know that we have the resources to effectively enforce something like this if, in fact, it came forward and we were to approve it. I'm open for persuasion in that regard, so I don't have an issue with this item coming back to the council for approval, so I'll limit my comments to what I said earlier about the retroactivity.
And that's what we're here for, just to bring it back for the issues and stuff. So it's no debate, it's just to see if we want to move forward on it.
I'll move approval of the item.
So Councilman Rose moves, I have a second.
Second.
Councilman Anders, second, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, fellow council members.
Thank you, Councilman Allen, for doing that. City Council Communications, Councilman Ken Henderson.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jeff Allen.
Okay, thanks. Mayor, yeah, real quick, if I can be, I attended, since our last council meeting, I attended the Joint Powers Insurance Authority's Elected Officials Summit. And, you know, it was a typical JPIA conference. We did, you know, discussed, because it's all about risk management and the aspects of that. But, you know, some of the new things that they came out in this particular conference that are a little bit scary. You know, they always discuss social media, but now they're including cybersecurity, ransomware, and, you know, we can talk. We can look at our sheriff's department as an example of how we can be vulnerable and think we're so secure. and also the use of artificial intelligence. The presenter gave us a demonstration. He asked one of the mayors there that was in attendance to give him a subject that's pertinent to their city, and the guy said, well, homelessness. So he typed in a query in the AI, and he said, hey, give me a 15-minute speech on how to effectively, with compassion, address homelessness, and that quick. And it was original, and it had meaning and heart, and it was and he manipulated things around with it, and so it's, I guess, can be used for good, but it can also be used for, for evil. So that's one of the things that was really interesting that I took away from the JPIA conference. Also, we discussed switching roles from being in a campaign to being effectively governing as a team, and the typical things about ethical crises. JPIA is, I think it's a very valuable partner. I will tell you, I spent in excess of 20 years in the Army, and not one thing happens from day to day throughout the day where risk is not part of the plan that you have to account for. Every step that's taken, where we learn how to assess the risk associated with taking that step and what we're going to do to counteract any of the adverse effects of it. So JPIA is a very valuable partner for us, and I really learn a lot from them, and I'm glad we're using them. Afterwards, I went to the city-county conference up at Lake Arrowhead, and one of the things I learned was, for anybody who's listening, is if you're interested in how our Measure I funds, they talked about how Measure I funds have been used throughout San Bernardino County, and we were one of the top receivers of that with our big bridge down here over the 215 freeway. So, they talked about that, and also strategies to improve the health of the residents in San Bernardino County. The Department of Public Health was there with some presenters, and we got into a great discussion, the sheriff and I and them, with about fentanyl, the fentanyl crisis in our city, and what we can do about that. And then there was a great panel discussion on logistics in the IE. And I want to tell you folks something, and it's going to blow you away when you hear this. I still have a hard time believing it. So there are surveys and there is research that has shown that when it comes to air quality, of the three major types of development that we deal with routinely, which are single-family homes, multifamily homes, and then commercial, retail, industrial, the development that provides the least, or the least worst air quality is a logistics center. The worst air quality of any new development today is a multifamily housing development. Will produce the worst air quality. And of course, these are logistics builders who are telling us all this, those who are promoting the logistics industry. But I don't think they would tell us a falsehood with all those. These were their attorneys who were explaining all this to us about how, how they're going to solar and the trucks are going electric, and I mean, it's just, so we can't really point our finger at the trucking logistics industry anymore and talk about that they're the dirtiest member of the team. We have to, understand that they're really working hard to change their image. So those were the two things that I went to, and the only thing I want to add to that is that I want everybody to please come to our Memorial Day ceremony at the wall.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. Councilman Robles?
Yeah, I was just looking at my calendar. I wasn't here at the last meeting. So on the 4th and the 5th, I attended the SCAG Economic General Assembly. And I was there because I sit on SCAG's, one of their subcommittees. But the thing that really interested me was they had certain providers for low-income housing and one of them was Jamboree, and I never knew who operated the one in High Grove. But it'd be nice if we had some discussions with them on how they reach their goals. And the final day was interesting, listening to the development representative talking about how, I mean, major city mayors like Todd Gloria of San Diego comes to him and says, why can't you build any houses within the city or housing stock? And he goes, I can do that for people that can afford $1 million or more, but I can't do it for people that, you know, are your medium income folks. They have, you know, that all has to be done in outlying areas. So that was interesting because he mentioned several big city mayors that he had discussions with. And it just seemed kind of fascinating, the idea that they thought they could build, you know, through the regular means of the capital process of housing in the inner city. So I also, as part of the subcommittee on housing with SCAG, all the local regional bodies go dark in August, but we're going to meet because they're going to have some discussions on RHNA numbers, so I'll come back and see what we're discussing on that. But when I do talk to my peers at these conferences, you know, even the most encompassing of us that want to see housing for folks, the RHNA numbers are huge. I mean, they're way out the ballpark, so that's going to be a problem. And excuse my absence at the last meeting. I had scheduled a week somewhere else, not realizing that was the city council meeting. And I will be unable to attend the Memorial Weekend because long ago I made tickets to go see Carlos Santana in Las Vegas. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Rose. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, my activities have been curtailed somewhat and continue to be. My last assessment, according to the doctor on Thursday, is that it can take 6 months to a year to recover from this, what I didn't understand is a major surgery. So, but I will continue to cherry pick the items that I can attend. And one thing I would like to bring up to Lieutenant Lane, there are some dirt bike enthusiasts that race down Observation Drive. And I don't know if it's a thing. I know that for cars and trucks, I guess people that drive cars and trucks can't read a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. And I'm tempted to get a big bucket of paint and paint the 25 right on the road. But I know that might be a little bit past my salary here. So, but I would appreciate it if your forces can check on those folks. They seem to be around somewhere around 5 o'clock when it gets dark. And I'm sure that the idea is to get out of school and then race up into the hills wherever they have access through the fence, and then spend the time up there and then come back down about the time it's dark. So that might be a good time to see if you can catch them. But they're dirt bikes, so they have, you know, basically no mufflers and so on. It's bad enough that we have a tough time with the cars and the trucks that like to go 50 to 60 miles an hour down that road. But I'd like to, I'm just waiting for the situation when a rampant dirt bike smacks into a kid. Because to me, that would be just a very unfortunate situation. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, to your right. Yes, I just want to echo Mayor Pro Tem Wilson's comments about the dirt bikes. I know where they live. I see them all the time walking, and as Mr. Wilson indicated, they're not muffled, and they also have no lighting. And on observation, and Van Buren in particular, they're a danger. I have a friend that lives on Van Buren who has a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old came within inches of his life. So there's no exaggeration in what the Mayor Pro Tem has described. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I also hear him at a certain time of day, so I'm sure you'll be able to catch him. I don't know. You guys are professionals, you'll figure it out. So, all right, first of all, I want to congratulate the class of 2023 on their upcoming graduation. So I'm sure I think they got a parade coming up. Yeah, and then other activities. But please be safe. You know, start your future out right. Don't do anything stupid. The county conference was it was nice going up there. I was asked one question from the SBCTA person, like, how come you didn't go on there? And I said, well, I want a Spitfire on there, and I put Councilman Robles on there. So I appreciate everything you do on there, Councilman Robles and stuff. So it's not about the titles, it's who we want to do the best job on these assemblies and everything in these.
They weren't trying to push me out, were they?
No, they just asked, they said, that's like a mayor's dream thing to be a boy. And I said, no, I want somebody who's going to do something that's good for there. So, no, they were not trying to, there was nothing but good talks. They just wanted to know why I wasn't on there. And it's probably the first and last time I'll probably meet these people. I don't know. So anyway, the county conference was great. As Councilor Allen was saying, it was, they talk about the logistics and stuff. And, we do have a lot of warehouses. And you don't think about it, too, like, we talked about the fast food places and the drive-throughs and all the, exhaust and everything being generated from that, just waiting on the cars and idling. So, but I think the state's moving in the right direction as far as, if you grew up here, you see how the air quality has changed a lot. And then they talked about quality, your boss did, Dan, and then the assistant sheriff. And then, but I really like they had 3 legislators that were no longer on there anymore, and they said, well, now you're going to get a legislator who's no longer in office tell the truth. And that was pretty funny. But Democrat, Republican, whatever you are in this city, the Democrats are super majority. But us on the council, we're nonpartisan, but we're here to call for to work on both sides of the aisle and do what's best for our residents here. And some of the young man, he was talking about that. He's a supermajority Democrat, and he couldn't get to a conservative city until he actually showed, they go, what do you want? What do you want? And they want anything. And then they said, well, we'll take $400,000 to have the seats redone. And he got it done, but he said, I'm here to represent everybody. So I thought that was pretty good. Attended the staff recognition today. It was a really nice event for the staff, and the food was great. Conrad even got award, the Big Banana Award, so I thought it was pretty neat that the staff gave him that. But we also recognized, the Sheriff of the Year, Deputy, and then the Firefighter of the Year, And that was great. I hats off to everybody who was there and our city staff who's working hard. But it's nice seeing, the recognitions and see, also on this week, Saturday, May 22nd, or 27th, weekend Memorial Day. I know a lot of people leave, but we know what Memorial Day is about. It's for honoring our war dead. But they have the requesting, if you could help place flags on the Riverside National Cemetery. It's going to start at 8 a.m. And then the biggest thing, they have a lot of people that want to put flags, but they don't have that many people who want to go out there and pick them up. Because when you pick them up, you have to clean out the, the post, and then you have to organize them and see which flags are still serviceable. But the flag retrieving is going to be Tuesday at May 30th, same time. So if you can make it out there, it's a great way to honor the men and women who fought for our country and gave their life. And if you do place a flag on there, don't be in a rush just to put how many flags. Take the time out to thank the person who's an eternal resting place for their service to our country. And I'm looking forward to the memorial service that is put on here. And Something that hit home, my family were requesting prayers. My son and daughter-in-law, we got from my unborn grandson, test results that weren't that good. So now we got to wait for other results for the baby. So, prayers will be greatly appreciated. And it can be trying and it's hard. I know it's God's plan, but please keep our family in prayer. So that's all I got. And I'd like to thank our council, for today's, going through everything in the agenda. We are a body, and forgive me if I stepped out of bounds, keep me in track. But, I appreciate all the work and all the stuff that everybody does here, and working together. And I see it when we go to these county conferences and the SCAG conferences, and we don't just go there. You go there to network, you go there to learn, but network's a big thing. It's a real big thing at these conferences. And of course, I go there and I'm begging for money. So, but it's great, and I thank you everybody for doing that and taking time, because when you do go to these conferences, it's not paid. It's coming out of your own time. You're sacrificing your time from your family, but you're doing it for your city, and I really appreciate that. So with that, city manager comments. The sheriff, Lieutenant Lane.
Well, good evening, everybody. Just a couple things real quick. First of all, I wanted to thank the mayor and city manager for the recognition today. Of course, it was great to see everybody there, but it's also great to know the city is taking a few minutes to recognize the work that our people do. And they don't get to hear that very often. They're often find themselves on the wrong end of that conversation. So it's great that we could have Dave here and hear some positive things from the city about the work that he's doing. So I wanted to thank you all for that. As mentioned, we do also have a parade Thursday, and I'll just mention that will impact traffic on DeBerry, Mount Vernon, and Maine between, I think, probably 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. The parade will start at DeBerry Park and then work its way over to the high school. So just ask for everybody's patience that are on the road trying to get home. I know that it's a little bit impactful, but we'll try to make it as quick as we can. And extend an invitation to everybody here about National Night Out. National Night Out is a community event that started in 1984, and it's really meant to recognize and appreciate the relationship that law enforcement has with the community. So we are going to be holding it on August 1st. It's the day that all across the country, agencies and cities come together. So we're going to partner with the city that night. I'm not sure of the location yet. It'll be at one of the parks here in the city, but we'll have hopefully some food, some displays. A bunch of our folks will be out there with some of our equipment. And it'll be a good time for people to come out and just sort of meet and greet Sheriff's Department and for us to get a chance to meet the community. So we're looking forward to that.
What was that date again, sir?
August 1st.
Thank you.
I do believe it's a Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be a little bit longer-winded than I normally am. So I was at the City County Conference as well, had the opportunity to sit through the Economist's briefing, and this went on for an hour and a half. I'm going to try and boil it down to a couple of points. He's adamant that we are not facing a recession. He's adamant that although there is a shortage of employees now, that he feels that the employment picture will turn around and be a much more positive employment picture going into the future. One of the really interesting arguments he made about that is that right now, with all the stimulus money across the nation, people's savings are through the roof, and they're living off these savings. With house prices and interest rates up, people are not selling their houses. They're using this money then to improve their houses, which could explain why our business and hardware sector is doing so well right now. A real interesting piece he brought up was wages in the Inland Empire. The Inland Empire is the 8th largest MSA, municipal service area in the country. So they break up of the 300 and some areas. The Inland Empire is number 8, which puts us large, in the league of, Denver, bigger than Seattle, bigger than Oklahoma City. And it was very interesting on the discussion that, these teams have NFL teams, these cities have NFL teams, they have, television stations, they have international airports that service millions of people. We don't have a radio station. And so this is something that we as an area really need to address to stand out on our own. The other one that's very interesting is the wages in the area, the Inland Empire. So he broke this down by educational level. Surprisingly, individuals with a non-high school degree or not a bachelor's degree have a markedly higher income level in the Inland Empire than they do in LA and Orange County. It's only when you start seeing that disparity happen at the bachelor's and post-bachelor's level to where individuals out here make less than they're out there. So this is part of what's drawing people out here, part of what's making this very vibrant. He feels the Inland Empire is a growing area, a vibrant area, and we're going to see this thing really explode in the next 10 years to a level that we have not seen in the past. He did make one interesting observation about affordable housing, and he made a good argument that all housing is affordable housing. Because even if you build $1 million home, somebody's going to move out of their $500,000 home into the $1 million home, and it will work its way up the chain as people move up, that someplace down at the bottom of the chain, there's an affordable unit that becomes available. And he made a very strong argument that any housing built is affordable in the end net result, which I thought was pretty great. We have a bunch of projects going on. I'm sure you've seen the damage we've done to the streets and the sidewalks. We're finishing up the sidewalks and some of the handicapped ramps. We're starting to do the grinding and the paving. This is going to go on for another 2 weeks, at least. So we really appreciate everybody's flexibility and putting up with this, but we are getting to that point where we're paving these areas that have horrific potholes. We've had people come here and complain about them. Most of those areas are on the schedule. When we see that, then when we're done with that, then we'll come back and identify these fill-in spots with our next pass. Also with that, by the time you get back in here, there will be new lighting in this room. So we'll get rid of these dead spots and get some decent lighting so we don't all look green on TV, and it'll be a nicer lighting. And we did have the employee recognition lunch. The important part about that, or the milestone, is that will be the last time that anything happens on that carpet. That carpet's coming out, and we're putting in new flooring in there as well. So with that, I think, the last one, with Memorial Day coming up, we have the flag deposit box in front of the annex building for damaged and tattered flags. We're working with actually the Code Enforcement Office from Loma Linda is involved with the Foreign Legion in Redlands, and they will be collecting whatever flags. They empty the box for us a couple times a year. So if you have anything, we're coming up to Memorial Day. Now is the time to retire those flags, and they retire them appropriately and respectfully. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Before I forget, I wanted to add a comment. Mr. Sanchez, I think, went home, but my husband would complain about people who don't use the sidewalk. And I was thinking he was kind of being overbearing until the last meeting that I attended, on observation, there's a lot of walkers, and I think people don't like the impact on the sidewalk. And they're wearing dark clothing, and I was, on the far side of the road, and I had to do a double take. So we have the problem of no sidewalks and then people not using sidewalks.
Yes, there's always something, but yeah, on the Memorial Day, Conrad, are we going to be lowering our flag at half-staff in the City Hall for Memorial Day?
Affirmative, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Council, for your comments and your dedication, your sacrifice that you did for the city. Ken Henderson.
Yes, I wanted to extend thanks and appreciation to the city manager and Director Clayton from the Finance Department regarding the budget we just approved. The process is very good from beginning to end, and very proud of the of the end product. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. A lot of work, and it's always good to have a good budget. So, thank you, staff. So we're going to be moving to, we're going to recess the closed session. Closed session is a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, pursue the government code, section 54956.9B, number of cases 1. So we're going to go into closed session. Thank you for everybody who came out, and God bless. Going to reconvene the open session to close out the staff report at this time. And we're going to go ahead and adjourn for tonight. The next regular city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, June 13th at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on future agenda items must be made in writing and submitted to the city clerk's office, and request the process in accordance with the council procedures. And once again, it's Memorial Day is coming up, and I just want to, prayers and thoughts for all the men and women who gave their life for this country. Oh, you got to throw something. I'm sorry. Go ahead, City Man.
Sure. Just briefly reporting out a closed session. We had one closed session item, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure litigation. Discussion was had and update provided, however, no reportable action. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, thank you for correcting me again. So anyway, God bless all the men and women who served and their families, and we'll see you June 13th.